the bedroom.
Tamika would try to have sexual interactions with him, and he would seem like he wasn't turned on.
It didn't take long for Michael's icy bedroom demeanor to make Tamika suspicious.
What's wrong with you? You want to watch the TV?
I got a headache.
Tamika was concerned that he would be cheating on her.
Are you seeing someone else? Answer me.
Why is that always the first thing that you come up with? Why do I always have to be saying somebody else? I'm tired.
Answer the question.
I'm not answering that question.
Certain neighbors had heard fight and things being thrown in the apartment.
Though the neighbors didn't report the incident when it occurred, they now tell police the fight seemed extremely violent.
When she confronted him, I'm pretty sure she, waved her hand in his face and he slammed her on the floor. So it definitely was a physical altercation they got into.
And in a follow-up interview with police, Thomas Banks informs them that the fight the neighbors heard was about more than just Michael's alleged infidelity.
There was evidence that Michael wasn't paying a lot of bills. She received a letter in the mail from the rental office about the 15th of July showing that the rent hadn't been paid.
What is this about? An eviction notice? You ain't been paying the rent? What have you been doing with the money?
In fact, the rental office claimed Michael hadn't paid the rent in nearly 3 months, which meant the couple had less than 30 days to scrape together the funds or they'd be evicted.
I'm done with your trifling ass. Can't stand you.
That was the upsettest I ever saw her. She was upset because she said she felt like her son was put in a position where they won't have nowhere to stay.
With the eviction notice adding fuel to the fire, at that point, Michael and Tamika's argument turned violent.
Get off of me!
He slammed her on the floor, and she ended up with a scratch on her face.
At that point, Tamika told Michael that the relationship was over. But Michael made it clear there was no way he was going to let Tamika simply walk away.
You ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna do a flat wall before I let you leave here.
Get off of me!
He had told her that if she wasn't going to be with him, she wasn't going to be with anybody.
To detectives, Michael Solomon was looking less like Tamika's Mr. Perfect and more like a possible murder suspect.
Those things always add or give credit to a possible motive. And we were leaning toward a domestic angle.
Working on the domestic violence theory, investigators circled back to the initial statement given by Tamika's cousin, Thomas Banks, and a tiny but significant detail. Thomas stated that the night Tamika disappeared, he'd been on the phone with her when the line suddenly went dead.
Tamika?
But Thomas made no mention of anyone else being on the line with Tamika. In a follow-up interview, however, Thomas informs investigators that wasn't the case.
Michael Solomon originally answered the phone.
Thomas tells police that Michael sounded agitated when he answered the phone, and Thomas could hear Tamika crying in the background. But when Thomas insisted on speaking to his cousin, Michael begrudgingly complied.
When she did get to the phone, Tamika was slightly out of breath, and you could tell that something had happened to excite her in the apartment.
As soon as she gets on the phone, she starts telling me about what happened prior to me calling, that her and Mike got into it.
But before Tamika could say anything, the line went dead.
Tamika.
And as Thomas had previously told police, his subsequent calls to Tamika went unanswered.
Hello?
After hearing this new detail, investigators are fairly certain Michael Solomon isn't a missing person or a potential victim. He's a fugitive on the run for the murder of Tamika Claiborne. But if that was the case, where's Michael Solomon now? Before investigators can answer that question, the case takes another unexpected twist. One that will have everyone wondering, was Michael Solomon really a killer? Or was he merely a fall guy for another more bloodthirsty assassin? To those who knew them, Tamika Claiborne and Michael Solomon seemed like the perfect couple. But after discovering allegations of abuse, threats, and financial misdeeds, investigators now believe Michael might have murdered Tamika and is now on the run.
People get to fighting and arguing every day, but to hurt somebody like that, you have to be really something wrong.
Police issue an APB for Michael Solomon, but before the bulletin even goes out, Michael Solomon suddenly reappears on investigators' radar.
I received a phone call. An attorney representing Michael Solomon was going to bring Michael Solomon in. He needed to tell his side of the story.
2 hours later, Michael Solomon shows up at police headquarters with his attorney in tow. Detectives immediately began grilling him about the murder of his fiancée. But if they're expecting a confession, they're sorely disappointed.
I brought it to Michael's attention that we had found a body. He showed no emotion, at all.
We found Tamika's body washed up on the banks of the James River. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that.
And with that, Michael refuses to answer any questions about how Tamika ended up dead or how her 3-year-old son Malik ended up alone in a parking lot.
I knew it would be hard to get the truth, and I felt that a person like this would not show any remorse if in fact he was the killer. Knowing these things inside, it all the more narrowed my vision of him being the suspect.
But if Michael was guilty, what was his motive? Without any hard evidence tying him to the crime, charging him is next to impossible. So while Michael stonewalls one team of investigators, a second team takes a different approach.
We needed further evidence to link Michael Solomon to the death of Tamika Claiborne. So we felt that we could only obtain that evidence by locating Michael Solomon's vehicle.
Police issue another APB, this one for Michael's car, a 2006 Chevy Malibu. It isn't long before they get a report of a sighting. A Chevy Malibu has been spotted in a parking lot not far from where Tamika's son Malik was initially found.
There was a vehicle, a Malibu, a gold-colored Malibu that didn't have a license plate. I knew that was going to be my vehicle.
Detectives impound the car. Looking inside, they find further evidence connecting Michael Solomon to Tamika's grisly murder.
Blood was found in the back of Michael's car, along with the duct tape and the rubber gloves. That tends to indicate that Michael was a part of the crime.
Investigators send the gloves, tape, and a section of blood-stained upholstery to the crime lab for analysis. While they're waiting for results, they receive another break in the case. This one comes from an anonymous tipster, one who claims to know the identity of the two men spotted outside Tamika's apartment the night of the murder, loading what appeared to be a body into the back of the car. According to the tipster, one of the men was indeed Michael Solomon, and the other was a notorious street thug known solely by his nickname.
They gave us statements that a person by the name of Crazy had helped Michael Solomon dispose of the body of Tamika Claiborne.
Investigators plugged the alias Crazy into their database. In an instant, the name Alfonso Richardson comes up. An ex-con, Richardson's rap sheet is peppered with drug charges and probation violations. But what really sticks out is Alfonso's current place of employment. Alfonso just happens to be a co-worker of Michael Solomon at his grocery distribution center.
Richardson, I think, was the kind of guy that Michael figured could help him get out of a tight spot.
Within hours, police track down Alfonso Richardson and bring him in for questioning. Given his lengthy rap sheet, detectives expect Alfonso won't willingly confess to being involved in Tamika's murder. But no sooner have they seated him in the interrogation room than Alfonso spills the beans.
So what do you know about the murder of Tamika Claiborne? I can put you at the scene of the crime, so I suggest you start talking. Yeah, I may know something about it. Okay, well, let's talk. When I got there, she was already dead. I just helped him move the body.
Alfonso tells police that after being paroled, he got a job at the grocery distribution center Michael Solomon worked for. Michael and Alfonso became fast friends. Then on the night of July 20th, Alfonso was at home. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock at his front door.
What's the deal, man? My family in there.
Man,
That's that blood on your shirt.
Hey, man, look.
What you been doing?
Man, look, me and Tamika, we got into an argument. She grabbed a knife, she tried to cut me, and she got stabbed accidentally, man.
But rather than going to the police, Michael told Alfonso he had other plans.
Hey, look, I need your help, man. I need to get rid of your body. You need to come and help me. Come on, man. Come on.
Michael Solomon tells him, "You're going to help me dispose of this body."
According to Alfonso, the pair drove back to Michael's apartment, where Tamika's body is sprawled across the blood-soaked sofa, and her 3-year-old son Malik is curled up next to her.
He didn't have any consideration for that child. That child went to sleep holding his dead mother's body. He's a monster. He's not a caring individual. He's a sociopath.
After moving little Malik off his mother's corpse, Alfonso and Michael wrap Tamika's body in a comforter and dump her in the back of Michael's car. They return to the apartment, collect the murder weapon, and douse the scene with bleach, hoping to cover up any remaining evidence. Once they were finished, Michael picked up little Malik and carried him out to the car, speeding off in search of the nearest bridge.
Michael Solomon and Alfonso Richardson eventually ended up at the Benjamin Harrison Bridge.
The two of them hoist the body over after attaching some cinder block or some concrete to it.
After getting rid of Tamika, Michael and Alfonso are faced with another problem: what to do with Malik, who is now awake and asking for his mother.
The whole time that they were driving with the remains of Tamika Claiborne in the back seat, and you got a crying 2-year-old wanting his mom in the front seat.
So what about the boy? We found the pickup truck, so we decided to put him in there. We figured when I'm crying, somebody'd hear him.
It's a chilling confession, but Alfonso Richardson's statement clearly implicates Michael Solomon as Tamika's killer.
I was in shock. When I say shock, I was numb. And it was just, I said, do you know this for sure? Do you have the wrong person? Or, because it's very unlike him.
Tamika's friends are having trouble believing Michael Solomon murdered Tamika. But just a few days later, the crime lab releases its analysis of the blood evidence collected inside Michael's vehicle.
The blood was later determined to be the blood of Tamika Claiborne.
The physical evidence gives investigators the ammunition they need to charge Michael Solomon with the murder of his fiancée, Tamika Claiborne.
I was mad about all of that. I was just angry.
I was mad. I was past mad. On the scale of 1 to 10, I probably was a 50, because I was mad.
Police also charge Michael Solomon and Alfonso Richardson with 1 count of child abandonment and 1 count of illegal disposal of a corpse. But charging Michael Solomon with Tamika's murder is one thing. Convicting him would be an entirely different matter. Despite the mountain of evidence against him, Tamika's fiancé has yet to officially give his side of the story. And when he finally does, a guilty verdict will seem far from certain.
I saw certain faces on the jury that appeared to be sympathetic to the explanation that Michael was given.
All Tamika Claiborne wanted in life was for a man to love and care for her and her son Malik. She thought she'd found that man in mild-mannered grocery distributor Michael Solomon. But after finding Tamika's dead body on the shores of the James River, as well as a laundry list of physical evidence, prosecutors have charged Michael with Tamika's murder. On January 10th, 2011, the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Michael Solomon gets underway. Prosecutor Michael Herring opens his case by painting Michael Solomon as a violent and abusive fiancé.
Tamika was passionate. She would not take what she felt to be disrespect from Michael. And I think that she had reached a point where she was suspicious of his fidelity to her.
He got angry, and he snapped.
What's her name, huh?
And when Tamika threatened to leave him, Michael became unhinged. Furious at the notion that Tamika was rejecting him, Michael grabbed a knife and stabbed Tamika 3 times in the neck, chest, and back in a jealous rage.
He told her that she wasn't going to be with him, she wasn't going to be with anybody.
Prosecutor Herring asserts that after Tamika was dead, Michael convinced his friend and co-worker Alfonso Richardson to help him clean up the crime scene, dispose of Tamika's body, and then abandon her toddler son in the middle of the night.
He called a person that he thought he could trust, which was Alfonso Richardson.
To support this version of events, Prosecutor Herring points to Alfonso Richardson's sworn statement, along with a report from the crime lab that proved Tamika's blood was found on the gloves, duct tape, and numerous other items collected from Michael's car.
The physical evidence in the back of Michael's car would give an investigator a lot of confidence. The DNA by itself is the golden ticket.
But when it's their turn, Michael's defense attorneys insist that their client isn't a murderer, rather another victim of a terrible and unfortunate accident. And to prove this claim, the defense calls a surprise witness to the stand, Michael Solomon. Seated at the witness stand, Michael explains that it was Tamika who was the true aggressor that night.
Where were you last night?
Michael claimed that while on the phone with her cousin Thomas Banks, Tamika accused Michael of cheating on her. Then, according to Michael, Tamika started hitting him.
You gonna disconnect the phone? Really? What's her name? Who were you with last night?
And then grabbed a knife off a nearby table.
They have said she came at him, and he fought.
Michael claims that Tamika slashed at him repeatedly. He was eventually able to grab her by the wrist, but in the struggle, the knife was accidentally turned against Tamika.
Tamika's coming at him with a knife. He gets it, manages to turn it back to Tamika, and his version was she plunged forward and in essence stabbed herself.
Breaking into tears, Michael explains that after he realized what had just happened, he panicked and drove to his friend Alfonso Richardson's house. But Michael claims it was Alfonso who came up with the idea of covering up the crime by cleaning the apartment.
Man, we about to help go back.
And dumping Tamika's body in the river.
Solomon held firm to his story that it was Richardson who came up with the plan.
Michael's testimony is powerful and appears to have affected several members of the jury.
I saw certain faces on the jury that appeared to be sympathetic to the explanation that Michael was giving.
But on cross-examination, Prosecutor Herring wastes no time pouncing on Michael's version of events.
There was something that I knew he would not have a response to. I mean, I think a kindergartner could have fun with that one. You know, how does she stab herself in the back?
Michael says he can't explain how Tamika stabbed herself in her own back. With his testimony complete, both sides rest their case. But whose version will the jury believe? Prosecutors or Michael's? As it turns out, the jury won't get a chance to decide. Just 2 days into the trial, the defense approaches the judge with a surprising proposal. They want to make a plea deal.
Michael ultimately pleaded guilty to second degree, 40 years, and ended up with a sentence of 33.
As Michael is cuffed and led away, Tamika's family is relieved that some measure of justice has been served, but it's not the sentence they'd hoped for.
I just didn't feel like he got what he deserved. I was just angry. I felt like he should get the same thing. You know, if he's going to take somebody's life, then his life should be taken also.
But Tamika's loved ones also know that no amount of punishment can ever make up for the lives that were ripped apart when Michael chose to end his and Tamika's relationship in cold blood.
No female should have to be attacked by another person, another male, a significant other, and worst, basically discarded like trash.
It's sort of like you're in a dream and you want somebody to pinch you and wake you up and tell you that this is not real.
They were the perfect match. A kind-hearted single mom who'd found the man of her dreams.
I'm telling you, she was like, she had won the lottery.
And a handsome grocery distributor who found the family he always wanted.
Treated him like he was his own child.
So I think that's what she wanted for her son, was to have that father figure in his life.
But when an abandoned child is discovered miles from home, their dream life together is torn apart.
I just got on my knees and I started praying.
As investigators work to uncover the truth, they expose a bloody trail of lies, abuse, and deception. A trail that ultimately leads to murder.
But we never thought it was going to turn out like this.
July 20th, 2010, Midlothian, Virginia. It's just before 11 p.m. in this quiet community outside Richmond. In her apartment on Valley Crest Drive, Alicia Scott and her husband Ronald are getting ready to turn in for the night. But their peaceful evening is suddenly interrupted by an unusual sound.
Hey, hon?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
What?
My husband looked out the window, and about 50 feet away, there was a pickup truck, and he saw a child standing in the bed. And then my husband yelled to me, he's trying to get out.
Hey, honey, he's gonna fall. Hey, you need to go and get him.
Alicia rushes downstairs. By the time she reaches the parking lot, The toddler has gotten out of the truck bed and is wandering barefoot.
Hey, what's your name?
I was asking him, just little basic questions. Where do you live? What is your name?
Oh, baby, where's your mommy?
When the child fails to answer, Alicia scoops him up and heads back to her apartment where she and her husband call the police. Within minutes, officers arrive and take custody of the frightened child.
In the meantime, the uniformed officers were basically going door to door in the apartment complex trying to identify who this child was.
No one in the complex seems to know the child's name or who his parents are.
Just my gut feeling was, my instinct was something bad has happened to this child's parent or parents.
She's from social services, so she's gonna get her.
Oh, okay, all right. She's gonna take care of you, okay?
Police turn to the local media for help, hoping word of the boy's discovery might reach his parents or a loved one. The story airs on the late night news. Watching the broadcast is one Barbara Gillison.
I cuss on channel 6 or 8, and all I can see is Malik picture and just start hollering.
Oh my God, Malik, oh my God.
Malik is the 3-year-old son of Barbara's beloved niece, Tamika Claiborne. Barbara instantly knows something is terribly wrong.
Tamika would never leave her son nowhere by himself. She wouldn't even let him go out on the front porch.
Pick up the phone.
After calling her niece Tamika's cell phone repeatedly and receiving no answer, Barbara rushes to the police station, a million questions racing through her mind. For starters, where is Tamika? And how did little Malik wind up barefoot and alone in a parking lot miles from home? Little does Barbara realize the answers to these questions will expose a horrifying tale of betrayal, deceit, and cold-blooded murder, one that features Barbara's niece, Tamika Claiborne, in a starring role. 27-year-old Tamika Claiborne worked hard to be a good mother to her young son, in large part because for much of her own childhood, her mother wasn't there for her.
My sister was going through some problems. She got caught up, in drugs, and Tamika ended up coming with us.
Tamika's Aunt Barbara, along with Barbara's husband Larry, took Tamika in as a teenager. And even though Barbara and her husband were raising 6 children of their own, it didn't take long for Tamika to fit right in. In fact, Tamika loved her new family so much that she couldn't wait to start one of her own.
As far back as I can remember, it was her being in middle school, always talked about having a big family. She used to tell us she was going to have triplets. And we told her she was crazy.
Of course, Tamika's first step to starting her own family was finding Mr. Right. And when Tamika was 21, she met a handsome radio DJ named Hassan Mohammed.
All she used to talk about was his dreads and how she loved touching them, and she was just in love with him. He'll make me happy.
That's my job.
That's right.
2 months into their relationship, Tamika and Hassan moved in together. And in 2006, Tamika received some wonderful news.
Hassan!
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm pregnant.
Oh, you what?
We're having a child.
You're having a child. Does it look like I need a baby right now?
But her joy was dampened when Hassan wasn't thrilled about being a father.
Baby, what are you talking about? We're gonna have a baby.
When she got pregnant, I don't know whether he was too happy about it because he didn't want a child at that time.
Look here, I don't want no baby.
That wasn't the only bombshell Hassan dropped on Tamika. Not only did he not want to be a father, he was no longer content to be exclusive with her.
I thought I was special.
Special? Look, you knew what this was. You think you're the only one?
What?
She told me about him seeing another female.
Wait.
Goodbye.
No. Hassan!
Despite the breakup, Tamika went through with the pregnancy. And that July, she gave birth to Malik.
She was just really excited to be a mom and to have somebody I think to love and that would love her unconditionally.
Even though she was now on her own, Tamika was determined to give Malik the happy, carefree childhood she never had. For that to happen, Tamika felt Malik needed a loving, supportive father figure.
She wanted to have a family, have a man that was going to be there to support her, and she'd do anything for Malik.
Tamika must have felt her prayers were finally answered when shortly after Malik celebrated his first birthday, she was introduced to a charming grocery distributor named Michael Solomon. Michael's soft-spoken yet kind-hearted demeanor meshed perfectly with Tamika's warm, outgoing nature.
Tamika and Michael definitely started getting closer and closer. She was happy to be in a relationship with him.
But what really captured Tamika's heart was the love and attention Michael showed her son Malik.
He'll take Malik places, he'll buy Malik stuff, he'll play with Malik. She started seeing how he was with her son. And that's when you could see that she fell in love.
For the next few months, their romance was everything Tamika dreamed it would be. After a year of dating, Michael and Tamika decided to get engaged and move in together.
I'm telling you, she was like, she had won the lottery. Because it seemed like it was going to where she wanted to go, you know?
A handsome fiancé, a wedding to plan, and the stable family life she's always dreamed of. Everything finally seemed to be falling into place for Tamika Claiborne. Which makes the scene unfolding just 3 months later all the more shocking. After seeing a local newscast about an abandoned toddler found in a parking lot, Tamika's aunt Barbara Gillison realizes the child is Tamika's son Malik. Barbara races to the police station to take custody of Malik. Barbara also tells police she's convinced something terrible must have happened to her niece.
We wanted to do a wellness check of the infant's mother.
Within minutes, a pair of patrol officers are knocking on the door of Tamika's apartment. But no one appears to be home.
Let's go get the super.
Just as police turn away, they hear the deadbolt unlatch.
Somebody's here.
Richmond Police.
But it isn't Tamika, or even her new fiancé, Michael Solomon. Rather, it's a person no one expects. A person who holds the secret to unraveling the mystery behind Tamika's disappearance. After a rocky childhood and an even rockier first romance, single mom Tamika Claiborne finally met the perfect man in handsome grocery distributor Michael Solomon. He was sensitive, passionate, and the perfect father figure for Tamika's young son, Malik. But no sooner has Tamika settled into her dream life than a nightmare begins to unfold. It starts when 3-year-old Malik is found crying and alone in a parking lot miles from home. Tamika's family fears Tamika and Michael might also be in danger.
I knew that she had to be hurt, you know, or it had to been something really bad.
The next morning, police head over to the couple's apartment to see if everything is okay.
Let's go get the super.
To their surprise, someone answers the door.
Richmond Police.
But it isn't Tamika or Michael.
Richmond Police, we're looking for Tamika.
Who are you?
My name is Thomas Banks. I'm Tamika's cousin. I live here.
Lost my job. I didn't have any transportation at the time. So I talked to Tamika and she offered for me to come stay with her.
Thomas claims to have no idea where Tamika or Michael are, and he seems shocked to learn that little Malik has been found alone in another part of town.
He was alone? Oh my God, he must have been so scared. Is he okay?
He's gonna be okay. We're still looking for his mom.
Police asked Thomas when was the last time he saw Tamika or Michael. Thomas explains that he returned to the apartment a few hours earlier from a new job at a restaurant, only to find the apartment was empty.
I opened the back door, walked in, and I yelled out, "Hey, Mika, I'm home." And I didn't hear anything. It was pretty dark in the house.
Figuring Tamika, Michael, and Malik must all be out somewhere, Thomas decided to get some sleep, and was only startled awake when police came knocking.
The information they received from me was pretty much that I didn't see her that night, and I didn't see her son.
Nevertheless, police decide to search the apartment.
You mind if we come in and take a look around?
Yeah, come on in.
Can I get you to have a seat here on the couch?
Yeah.
At first, they can find no evidence that sheds light on where Michael and Tamika might be. But as they make their way from room to room, a distinct odor begins to overpower them.
There was the heavy smell of cleaning agents inside the apartment.
The scent suggests Michael and Tamika's apartment was recently scrubbed from top to bottom. But in the living room, investigators make a telltale discovery.
They actually started searching the couch I was sitting on.
Thomas, can I get you to stand over here, please?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
To the naked eye, it looked just like a stain. But to a trained investigator, it was obvious that it was blood.
Judging from the moisture and coloration, police estimate the stain is less than 24 hours old.
At that particular point, we felt that we could definitively consider that area a crime scene.
But what kind of crime exactly?
There was no forced entry. There was no signs of struggle. Show that whoever committed this crime were known to one or both of them.
If investigators are looking for someone with easy access to Michael and Tamika's apartment, they need look no further than the man standing in front of them, Tamika's cousin and new roommate, Thomas Banks.
We meet a person at a potential crime scene. We always consider him a suspect.
Detectives back at the station dig into Thomas's story, and it appears to check out. At the time blood was being shed inside Michael and Tamika's apartment, Thomas's co-workers place him at the restaurant where he's now employed.
We had evidence to confirm that he was where he said he was.
With Tamika's cousin Thomas Banks seemingly eliminated as a suspect, police wonder who else might have access to the couple's apartment. That's when Thomas Banks clues police in on a telling phone call he had just hours before the couple vanished. A call he had with Tamika.
Between 4 and 6:30 that day, I called home to let Tamika know, hey, I'm going to be coming home a little bit late tonight.
Hey, what's up? Why you sound like you've been crying?
Thomas claims that while he and Tamika were talking, something unexpected happened.
The phone just disconnected. I tried to call back about 2 times, and it went straight to voicemail.
With this information in tow, investigators can't help but speculate whether the disconnected call was merely a dropped signal, or was there someone else inside the apartment that night? Someone who wanted to sever more than just a phone connection. Someone who wanted to rip Michael and Tamika's dream life apart in the most brutal way imaginable. Three months ago, 27-year-old single mom Tamika Claiborne took a huge step in both her and her son's lives when she became engaged to 29-year-old Michael Solomon. But on July 20th, 2010, Tamika's 3-year-old son Malik was found alone in a parking lot 20 miles from home. While searching Tamika and Michael's apartment, police discovered a mysterious blood stain, which suggests the couple might be victims of a violent crime.
I felt that someone in the apartment had did something to Tamika Claiborne and Michael Solomon.
Investigators asked neighbors if they've seen or heard anything suspicious in the past 24 hours. One man tells investigators he did see something a bit unusual.
He described a vehicle being on the stoop and 2 people loading something in the vehicle.
The neighbor claims he couldn't identify exactly what the 2 men were loading into their vehicle, but whatever it was big and bulky. Given the blood stains they found in Tamika and Michael's apartment, it's not hard for investigators to come up with a theory as to what the 2 men were loading into their car.
I thought that whatever they were placing in that car was the remains of Tamika Claiborne or Michael Solomon.
So can you give me a description of the guy that you saw the other night?
Yeah. Detectives asked the neighbor if he could identify either of these mystery men. Unfortunately, the poor lighting prevented him from getting a good look at one of the men. But the other actually approached him and asked him for a cigarette.
You mind if I bump a cigarette off?
When the neighbor lent the man his lighter, the flame illuminated his face.
Although it was at night, it was lighted enough where that neighbor could give us an accurate description of who we were looking for.
He was black, probably I'd say medium build, 6 foot, 190 pounds, and he had a beard.
Armed with this information, investigators turned to Michael and Tamika's friends and family, but nobody seems to know anyone matching the mystery man's description.
It was just a dead path that I was being led on.
But just when it seems detectives have hit a wall, they receive word of some horrifying new evidence.
Homicide, Williams.
I got a call that certain remains, body remains of a black female had been found in a county a little further from Richmond, off the river.
What do you have for me?
It's pretty bad, Detective. Victim's right down here.
Under normal circumstances, that body should have been more toward the ocean. But it was a drought season that year. The water level was low. That body did wash ashore. The body was wrapped up in a comforter. It was taped at its neck and at its foot area.
But is it the body of Tamika Claiborne? At first, it's difficult to tell.
Body had been in the water so long, the fingerprints were actually pulled off.
But when the medical examiner takes a look at the body, the cause of death is plain to see.
Medical examiner had immediately determined that she had been stabbed.
In total, the ME counts 3 deep stab wounds, 2 in the neck and chest area, and 1 in the back. And when the victim's tattered clothes are peeled back, the ME discovers heartbreaking proof that the dead body is that of Tamika.
Does the name Malik mean anything to you?
That's the name of Tamika's son. I think we found Tamika Claiborne.
Detectives are now faced with the grim task of informing Tamika's family. Needless to say, they're devastated.
It's sort of like you're in a dream and you want somebody to pinch you and wake you up and tell you that this is not real.
The grief is amplified by the fact that Tamika's aunt, Barbara Gillison, must find a way to explain to young Malik that his mommy is never coming home.
Her son is not gonna never know his mama. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do.
While Tamika's family grieves over her death, detectives reclassify the case as homicide. The questions now are, who killed Tamika? And did the killer take Michael Solomon's life as well? From the outside looking in, the future looked bright for 27-year-old Tamika Claiborne. She had a beautiful son and a steamy romance with her charming fiancé, Michael Solomon. But in 2010, that bright future is violently snuffed out when Tamika's body is discovered on the banks of the James River, stabbed multiple times.
I was devastated. I'm crying. I'm just really, really upset now. I done lost my child.
I got on my knees that night. I could not sleep at all. I just prayed and prayed and prayed.
Equally disturbing is the fact that Tamika's fiancé, Michael Solomon, is still missing.
My sister and I went home and we started posting pictures of Mike on Facebook, asking anybody for their help.